Hello, everybody. This is James McAllister bringing you episode 4 of the Help Start My Site podcast.
Welcome to the Help Start My Site podcast, your guide to business, blogging, and making money online. Here's your host, coming to you from his home office in Bellingham, Washington, James McAllister.
Man, I feel like things are moving on quite nicely, to be honest. We've got a nice little community building up, and the podcast has received some nice reviews in iTunes, so I'm very thankful for that. I'm also feeling a bit more comfortable, and things are starting to flow a bit nicer, so all in all, things are going well. Anyway, this week, we're going to discuss a very huge topic, and that is financial independence, and whether or not it's possible to achieve through blogging alone. Financial independence is one of the main goals people seek when they pursue blogging, or any entrepreneurial task for that matter. So today, we're going to figure out whether or not that's actually possible, and if so, how we can realistically make it happen. Later, we're going to be talking about Google's new privacy lawsuit, how .com compares against other domain extensions when it comes to search engine click-throughs, and the growth of Pinterest. For all of the show notes in this week's episode, visit helpstartmysite.com/episode 4. Alright, financial independence. The dream for many people. Just the thought of being able to retire early and live off the money you already have is enough to bring a smile to most people's faces. Now technically, financial independence is possible for pretty much everyone. The question is, when will it be achieved? If you retire too late in life, well, you won't have much time or energy to enjoy all the money that you have. I think it's fair to say that most people like to retire as early as possible, or at least have that option available to them. Now obviously, what's required to achieve financial independence will be different for everyone, and it will depend on a huge number of various factors. You've got to factor in your expenses, your area's cost of living, how things will change in the future, such as property taxes going up, for example, your current age, whether or not you'll have children, the risks of living in your area, so for example, natural disasters and the risk that they can destroy your home. Anyway, there's a ton of factors. So you have to think of all of those when calculating how much money you'll need. I mean, really, I can move to East Asia and be financially independent tomorrow, but I'd much rather live in the area I do now, even though it costs significantly more to live in. Anyway, to become financially independent, you have to have enough money coming in to cover all of your expenses, and then a bit extra as a safety net. There are typically two ways to go about this. Option number one, and this is what most people take, is they save and invest as much money as possible. They invest it into the stock market and retire when they have enough to live off of until they die. Option number two, start a business or create something that creates passive income. We're talking about book royalties, course sales, residual affiliate commissions, etc., etc. You know how it works. Create something once and collect money from it forever, or at least until someone else creates something better and your income stream dries up. And then there are the people who do both, and this is actually what I'm doing to create my own financial freedom. I'm creating products like my books and my blogging course, which is on the way, and then investing all of the extra money I have into index funds. This grows my nest egg at an average of 7% a year after you account for inflation. Alright, so we've got the how, but what about the how much? Again, it depends on a huge amount of factors. The main one, though, is going to be your expenses. If you lower your expenses, you'll need less to retire. I write a lot about this in what I believe to be the best post I've ever published on my site, How to Quit Your Job to Blog Full Time, which I'll link to in the show notes. Okay, so let's say for example that I could live off of $2,000 a month, and that was all I needed to retire. Let's say my passive income streams were steady at $1,000 a month. That would mean I needed another $1,000 a month to come from somewhere else if I wanted to become financially free. Okay, so there's a common rule that most financially independent people go on called the 4% rule. This rule basically states that once you're ready to retire, then you can safely pull out 4% of your total money from your investment account each year, with a 95% chance that you will not run out of money before you die. This again is because the market averages 7% a year after inflation, so in theory, your total money should actually grow as you're withdrawing. Anyway, using this rule, we can determine how much money you'll need in our account to achieve financial independence. Going back to our example, we would need an extra $1,000 a month or another $12,000 per year. This would mean that we would need $300,000 in our account that we can withdraw money from. Now I know that sounds like a lot of money, but if I had $75,000 in the market today, and I just let it sit for less than 20 years, I would have more than $300,000, and I wouldn't have even done anything. I would have put in no extra money, and it would have grown completely on its own. Clearly, investing is pretty powerful, so it makes sense to put your money to work for you by investing it in the market. Alright, well how does this relate to blogging, and can you actually achieve financial independence through blogging? The answer is yes, but the answer is also no. The truth is, blogging is far from passive. There's a ton of work that goes into it every week, even if you've already been successful. If you slack off, then somebody else is going to work harder and steal your visitors. That's just the way it is. So no, blogging itself can't make you truly financially independent. It can replace your regular job and provide you all the income you need to live off of, but that source will slowly but surely disappear if you stop working. However, you most certainly can become financially independent using the money that blogging makes you. Blogging and internet marketing have no real limit to the amount of money you can earn, so as soon as you're making enough to cover your expenses, it's a very wise decision to invest all the extra money you have into index funds. If you want to learn how I recommend doing this, you'll want to read over the Investing and Securing Your Earnings section of my book, The Young Entrepreneur's Guide to Business, Finance, and Life. Doing the math, if you had $1,000 left over from blogging each month, and you invested that money, you'd be a millionaire in today's dollars in 27 years. If you count inflation, then you'd be a millionaire in 22 years, and actually quicker than that, because inflation would cause you to make more money. If you invested $1,500 a month, which still isn't unreasonable at all if you're making a good amount from blogging, you'd be a millionaire in 19 years. Now think of it this way. With $1 million and the 4% rule, you'd be able to withdraw $40,000 a year and still have your portfolio grow. Many people don't even make $40,000 a year working their traditional job. So while blogging itself won't bring you financial independence, the money blogging can bring you most certainly can. And that's powerful. The really important thing is that you get this financially independent mindset ingrained into your mind as early as possible. The difference between a rich person and a poor person isn't really how much money they make, it's how they're spending that money. You can have a job paying $100,000 a year, but if you're spending all of that $100,000, then you'll be worse off than the guy that makes $50,000 a year and saves half of it. If you aren't doing something to either create passive income or put your money to work for you, then you'll always be reliant on your employer, and you will never be financially free. And again, ideally you'll be doing both. You'll want to leave as much of your money in the stock market as possible, so you can continue earning more from it. I could start withdrawing my 4% as soon as I hit $1 million, or I could leave it in the market for another 5 years and grow it to $1.6 million, and live quite a bit more comfortably in retirement. My own personal goal is to not have to take money out of my account at all, and just live off my passive income sources and my dividends from the stocks. When I die, I'll just give my money to charity or something. So again, just to summarize, can you become financially free from blogging alone? No. Can you become financially free with the money blogging gets you? Absolutely, if you put that money to work for you. It's not hard, you've just got to start doing it. And again, if you want to learn my safe, reliable method for investing, be sure to pick up a copy of The Young Entrepreneur's Guide to Business, Finance, and Life, which will be in the show notes. Moving on, let's look into some of this week's most important news in the internet marketing world, and see how we can use it to our advantage to help us grow our businesses. First up, Google is getting sued again for the Cookiegate scandal back from 2012. Now if you don't know what Cookiegate is or was, it was basically an issue that was brought up when it was discovered that Google, among a few other major ad companies, were bypassing the option in mobile users of Safari on iPhone to block third-party tracking cookies. Originally in 2012, Google paid $22.5 million to settle the case in the US, but the issue now is for the privacy suit in the UK, which was approved this week. This article from the Wall Street Journal says that the plaintiffs, which are the British iPhone users, suffered damage to personal dignity, autonomy, and integrity, and have been caused anxiety and distress. The court has said that Google should have known that its data collection was exceeding what it should have been expected under its privacy policies. Now what does that have to do with us? Not a lot, but it just shows that privacy and security are more important to people than ever. People are paranoid about websites and companies tracking them, and if you don't have a clear privacy policy available on your website, you want to add one as soon as possible. In other news, VeriSign has conducted a study that says that search engine users are more likely to click on domains ending in .com than domains ending in other extensions, especially a lot of the newer obscure ones that have been coming out recently. Not only are .coms getting clicked on more often, but people are actually skipping higher ranking websites to click on those that end in .com. It's important to note that domain extension has no effect whatsoever on SEO, but apparently that doesn't matter. In the end, it comes down to clicks, and if people are skipping over your website to find one that ends in .com, you've got a problem. This is pretty significant news because it proves that .com actually does affect how well you do in the search engine results pages. Because like I said, in the end, it all comes down to how many people are landing on your website. High rankings do not mean anything if nobody's clicking, right? The study also claims that 94% of test subjects were able to correctly recall a .com address compared to only 7% who could recall one of the newer domain extensions. Now, .com has always been the best option when choosing a domain name, simply because it's the most popular. When you tell someone the name of a website, they automatically assume it ends in .com because that domain extension is the most common. So if your desired domain isn't available in .com, perhaps it's a better idea to find a different one. Alright, to wrap up the news for this week, Pinterest is celebrating its 5th birthday, and it's been announced that there have been 50 billion pins posted in total. Wow, that's a lot. This time last year, there were only 30 billion pins, which means that Pinterest has grown 66% faster this year than they did last year. That's pretty incredible. Pinterest is clearly growing pretty fast, but are you taking advantage of that? If you're in a graphic-heavy niche, then you probably should be. Pinterest is primarily a photo site, but it's a great traffic generator as well. If you post a pin from our website, a link to that website is available on the pins page on Pinterest. Some people are getting tens of thousands of visits a month just from other people pinning their content, which is pretty unbelievable. Alright, those are the main pieces of news for this week. Let's take a look at some of the standout posts from around the web that I think you should check out if you haven't already. Links to all of these articles will be in the show notes at helpstartmysite.com. First up, we have an article from Ryan Biddulph on Blogging from Paradise called How to Write one 7,000 Word Blog Post Weekly. And let me tell you, this is coming from somebody who actually does write one 7,000 word blog post each week. Now I know it's not for everybody, but the advice within the article isn't restricted to just blog posts. Using the advice in this article, you could write one 2,000 or so word long blog post and then put the other 5,000 words to use on a Kindle book or something, for example. Which, by the way, Ryan puts out quality Kindle books faster than anyone I know, on top of the giant blog posts he puts out each week. Moving on to number 2, we have an article from Leapfrogger called My Go-To Link Building Strategy That Skyrockets Websites to the Moon. Now, I'm not personally big on SEO at all, but the author of this piece, Dennis Seymour, is definitely an expert on the subject and knows a lot more than I do. There are quite a few very unique link building strategies in this article that I would have never thought of personally, so if you want to boost your search engine rankings, check this one out. Dennis is also starting a podcast pretty soon from what I've heard, so that'll be one I'll definitely be tuning into. The third post this week is from a guest author on ProBlogger.net called 7 Effective Tips to Grow Your Social Media Presence the Right Way. Social media has changed a lot in these past few years, and you've got to do things differently if you want to grow a loyal, engaged group of followers. This article will show you how. Fourth, we have an article from Niche Hacks called The Ultimate 57-Point Blog Marketing Checklist. You know, I feel like every post published on nichehacks.com should be in this shoutout list because they are incredible. Really, this post could have been sold as an ebook and still have been an incredible value. If you're not marketing your content and nobody is reading it, then it's not helping you much. You'll definitely want to read over this one because my own words won't do this post justice. And finally, the post on Help Start My Site this week. What does the future of internet marketing look like? This post goes into detail about how we can expect things to change within the next few years and about the blogging and the marketing world. It shows how you can start making changes right now to prepare for the inevitable changes that are coming in the future. The truth is, if you aren't willing to keep up with the changes in our industry, then you'll get left behind because your competitors will be on top of things. As I say in the post, you've got to adapt or you've got to die. It's really your choice. Alright, that's all we have time for in this week's episode of the Help Start My Site podcast. I appreciate you taking the time to tune into today's show, and I'll see you at the next one. Until then, make sure to pay me a visit on my blog, helpstartmysite.com, and sign up for my free email newsletter if you haven't already. See you there.
Thanks for tuning in to the Help Start My Site podcast. If you like what you just heard, be sure to check out the show notes at www.helpstartmysite.com.